Indians today are a superpower in the semiconductor industry.
India is rising towards being a consumption economy of semiconductors. We are in the right direction.
Semiconductor superpower will be a country which has the right relations, which has the right geopolitical equation with the consumers, with the suppliers, and has few nodes where it is the market leader.
Good afternoon to all of you. This is perhaps the most difficult session because it's a post-lunch session, but we'll try to keep it interesting. We'll try to keep it relevant for many of you. I'll straight away jump into the discussion. I think we all are very well aware of the ecosystem, semiconductor ecosystem India has currently. What we are trying to understand is the next 5 to 7 years or even beyond. And will India be a superpower in the semiconductor ecosystem? And if yes, then what are those critical success factors we need to look at? So I will straight away jump into the discussions here. Let me start at a macro level. First of all, to first define the problem statement, to say in which exact area, domain are we talking about of being a superpower? One, I'll ask all these esteemed panelists for this question, and I will request each of you to answer this question for me. First of all, yes, I don't think there is any doubt that India can be a superpower and India will be a superpower. But I would like to understand in which area or which component or which specific part of the whole value chain will India be a superpower in, and roughly around how much time do you see for that to happen?
We'll start with this. So thank you, Abhishek. I think that's a great question, right question I think for this time. Because we are trying to do a lot of things for the future, and we have a standing in the industry at the moment. So will India be a semiconductor superpower? I think I would want to start with a statement that Indians today are a superpower in the semiconductor industry. Right? That's how I see it, because you go anywhere in the world, you will see that when it comes to semiconductor design, 20% of the R&D is actually driven out of India. That is really good. When you look at the larger Western world, you'll also see that pretty much all the teams, there is today, I think I can safely say, barely a tape out that happens without Indians contributing into it. So from that perspective, I think we are doing wonderfully great. But when it comes to, of course, the manufacturing, when it comes to the test, when it comes to ATMP, there is a long road ahead of us, right? And that is where, of course, there is plenty of stuff to be done. I'll just take an example of this recent book that came out, The Chip Wars, right? A lot of us have pretty much almost have read this. Chris Miller wrote that. It became a rage. There is barely a word about India in that whole 400-page book, right? Zero reference, which actually tells that we are almost nowhere when it comes to the actual production and test capability. So there is a lot to be done in that area, lot to be done in terms of the policy, in terms of the skilling, in terms of the products, in terms of the equipment that goes into it. So a lot of things, but there is a lot of work going on as well. And I think that's what the discussion is about. So it's a dream for us going forward, but I think it is an achievable dream is how I see it.
Thank you. And thank you for a great opening question. It's an honor to be here along with a very known fellow panelist, which are stalwart in the industry. So I will answer the question in, there are 3 different ways to look into India when we say semiconductor superpower. One is semiconductor designers. Today, as Amar rightly said, India is the largest talent base for semiconductor design. And this is only increasing because most of the multinational companies as well as now Indian companies are entering into semiconductors design, and India is the preferred choice. So I have no doubt that from a talent provider perspective, to drive semiconductor superpower, India is already there. Right? Now the second angle is semiconductor as a consumption. Now we know that as India is moving up the value chain 10 years back, India was nowhere in the top 10 economies of the world. Today we have reached, jumped 6 places in last 10 years only, and we are poised to be number 3 in next 10 years. And as India is growing up the economy, the per capita income is growing, and something that each Indian is buying either for the personal consumption or from the industrial perspective is the electronic goods, and they all are based off semiconductors. So I think India is rising towards being a consumption economy of semiconductors. We are in the right direction, and I have every confidence that we will be a superpower in, if not next 10 years, next 25 years. The third is semiconductor producer. That is where I think we have been relying on the rest of the world. Out of $1 trillion of semiconductor production that we are predicting, India is virtually zero right now. Right? And that is where a lot of work needs to be done. A lot of work is happening. But again, I would say we are probably, if not in 2 decades, but in 3 decades, we will be there. So directionally in all 3 fronts, I would say one we are already there, one we are midway, one we are starting. That's how I will put it.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Sanjay. What do you have to say about that, Suraj?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for attending this session, and very aggressive topic over here. So I think the previous speakers have given 2 different perspectives. So I'll try to give an entirely different angle to this. I think a lot of this question comes after COVID, right? Before COVID, I think the chip war book is a good example of the status before, right? Where India was not even in the footnotes. Now, I think from a strategic perspective, countries have realized that they need semiconductor capability in order to even protect their local industries. I think Europe had that issue, probably about $90 billion worth of automobiles didn't ship because there was no click, right? Things like that, right? So for India, right, EV, we want to be a big force in EV by 2030. We have aspirations of being a leader in space technology, in defense technology, communications, and quantum, the session that was before this, AI, things like that where India wants to be a big player, all have semiconductor as their foundational basis. It is very difficult to be a leader in those industries if you do not have some level of self-sufficiency or at least direct input into the semiconductor node. I think to that extent, it is important for India to build that so that we can support those strategic industries. Semiconductor always used to be a globalized industry. Every chip sort of went back and forth about 50, 60 times around the globe before when from silicon to chip. And the industry worked on just in time. I think COVID broke all that. Now we are de-globalizing to some extent. The China plus one opportunity gives us the supply chain resilience aspect. I think that's one additional topic that I'll bring where India can play a role. How can India be a China plus one for the supply chain ecosystem? So that's probably one more thing to think about.
Thank you, Suraj, and I'll come back to you a little later about the specific industries which you're talking about. That's very helpful. Ashish.
Okay, yeah, so we heard very interesting perspective, and I would present a slightly different take on this. So, semiconductor superpower, what really it means? There are multiple nodes in the semiconductor process. We talked about design. Yes, India has 20% design engineers, but few of them are doing design and a lot of them are doing design verification. Second aspect is all these engineers are actually working for US or European companies or maybe South Korean companies, and for us to excel in design, we would need Indian companies to have good design capabilities, which we can claim helps India make a semiconductor superpower in design. The next aspect, verification. I think any company that we go to, the verification engineer, the verification head is sitting in India. So we really are at the top over there. Manufacturing, we have talked about India being a zero. But the fact remains that Taiwan is actually doing 68% of the manufacturing for the world. So it's not that every country has been successful at manufacturing. Everyone wants to be a semiconductor superpower, have manufacturing at their end, but few have been successful. We have a chance, we have the resilience, we have the talent force, and now with the government initiatives coming into that direction, I think it will go the digital payments way. We may be very late than any of the digital payment gateways which were existing in foreign countries, but when we started that, we became the biggest digital economy in the world. So that's one part. And the last node which the government is actually focusing on is assembly, test and packaging, which is a low-hanging, less complex node, still more complex to the other processes we do, but there is an opportunity to be the market leader. With technology, the machines that are used for semiconductor manufacturing coming from across the globe, with that kind of a diverse ecosystem, I believe a semiconductor superpower will be a country which has the right relations, which has the right geopolitical equation with the consumers, with the suppliers, and has few nodes where it is the market leader, be that design, be that assembly, test or packaging, which the government is setting sights on, and eventually we'll move on to manufacturing. So with that in mind, India definitely is poised to become a semiconductor superpower because the policy, the fact that we are having such a panel at almost every conference nowadays, people are coming together, government is setting up their single point of clearance windows at these conferences. India will eventually reach there. The ambitious goal is 5 to 10 years. Once we get started to become a market leader with the kind of workforce, with the kind of support we have in our favor, it would not be very far away.
Thank you, Ashish, for laying that roadmap beautifully. Varun, what do you have to say?
I think the next question should probably come to me first because everything else is already spoken about. Anyways, yeah, topic is interesting depending on how you look at it, right? I won't repeat whatever's already spoken about, but let's say Sahasra Semiconductors as a company which I'm representing at this panel, so we are in the manufacturing domain. And everybody has already spelled out the shortcomings in manufacturing. So I won't spell that out, but I'll talk about it from our perspective. From a manufacturing perspective, we have to learn to walk before we run. And if you look at any country and any country which is today a superpower in the semiconductor manufacturing space, and typically this is Taiwan, Korea, Malaysia, which is in the testing space, this has not happened overnight. So let's not use the word superpower right now. Yes, we may be a superpower in some other domains, definitely in design, but, and I'm not saying we cannot get to the word superpower, but it needs to take its own time and there is a journey towards it. The second aspect is that manufacturing will only come in when there is adequate demand. And adequate demand is not only about consumption, but adequate demand from a manufacturing standpoint is when, as an OSAT, my output gets consumed here at least in certain percentage. Typically, the semiconductor ecosystem, which is by and large out of island nations, it gets consumed there itself. Within few kilometers of radius, you have a fab, you have an OSAT, you have a testing facility, you have a design house, you have a product design house, and then you have the EMS and you have an OEM. And Taiwan and Korea are the best examples of that. So I think very first thing is that not only design, which we are very good at, and again, others have spoken about the shortcomings there that we are very good, but we're doing it all for everyone else. We have to start looking at design in the entire spectrum. Not only design chips for someone else, but design chips for ourselves, for our own products, for our own value add. And I don't hesitate in saying China has done this beautifully. So within our group, we have an EMS company as well. 25 years back, when we started EMS operations, almost all our bill of materials used to have European and American brands in it. Over the last 7-8 years, we've seen a shift towards Chinese, Taiwanese. So they have really brought in their products into the BOMs. And these BOMs are of companies all across the world. So till we don't have an Indian chip within those bill of materials, it will not get consumed, right? So whether it's the fab or it's an OSAT or it's a testing house, we'll continue to work for overseas customers if we don't entertain that demand within India, which exists by the way, but is all getting met by imports.
Yeah.
So we have to ensure that we design for ourselves as well and subsequently look at it designing for the globe if we really want to get to scale.
Right, right. Thank you. Very, very helpful. Varun, you spoke about, and now I'll throw the first question at you only. You spoke about being a packaging and a testing hub, or maybe to start with even the design element which you spoke about. Now, what is that one most critical factor or element which needs to be brought in to push start all the things which you spoke about? Because let me also tell you, the audience here may also be trying to understand where is the play for medium, small size enterprise in India. Because as large corporates, I'm sure all of you are doing whatever you can. But where is the play for medium and small size enterprise in India? And what is it that they can do to be a part of the chain or the spectrum which you spoke about?
So it's no hidden secret across the world, SMEs contribute to every single economy, right? I think there are three factors. One is the government has to play a very, very important role in this entire semiconductor ecosystem development, which could be direct, indirect. And it has to be an ongoing process. While some of the schemes that have been released are, perfect and very, very encouraging, but it will have to be something which we have to set our sights on for the next 10, 20, 30 years if we really want this industry to develop seriously. So that's one aspect. Second is industry, academia, which is always spoken about. It's really, really needed when we come to the semiconductor domain. Because a lot of design development activity happens within collaboration between academia and industry. And I'm not even talking about development of only a chip, right? A lot of, at a lot of forums I'm always asked, so along with OSAT, are you also designing something? And I'm like, no, because I don't need to get into every aspect. I would want to look at development in terms of developing my supply chain. Why should I get lead frames from China when it can be done here? India is a terrific market when it comes to the automotive industry, right? It may be due to different reasons, but there are tons of players who can make sheet metal, precision parts. Lead frames can be done here. Substrates can be done here. It's no rocket science, right? So that is the kind of development that we need to look at. So I would say the three, as I said, academia, industry partnership. The second is the government role. And the third is how we as all SMEs can get together, right, and address our issues for each other. We have to be proud of our own products, our own outcomes, and our own expectations, because we're all at a level playing field. If you look at it only from an outside perspective, we're probably not a level playing field.
Sure. Thank you, Varun. Amardeep, Varun spoke about, he touched upon a little about the skill set, and he said academia, industry partnerships, with the primary objective, of course, research and development and workforce development, talent development. While the government and a lot of SMEs are taking initiatives about the Future Skills India program, etc. But again, for the benefit of our audience, where is the gap in the talent which we need over the next, let's say, 5 years or 7 years or 10 years? And how can some of our entrepreneurs sitting here get into that sort of skilling and upskilling?
Yep. I think that's a great question. As we try to build and expand an industry, talent becomes one very key element there, right? I see it in three pockets when we talk about talent. One is the design talent, which I think we have a lot of, so that is not really a challenge. But the issue is that the design talent today in India is getting extremely costly. Even the MNCs are finding it difficult to be able to, manage the kind of cost that we have. Pretty much all the MNCs are into these talent war all the time. We will take pot shots at each other that, hey, we were able to hire this guy and that guy, but at the end of the day, we are training the MNCs, right? Or, the parent as such. So I think we'll have to be very mindful of the cost increase that continues to happen on the design talent, right? That's one key area if you want to continue to be competitive in the market when there is so much more coming in Eastern Europe, in Asia and so forth, right? So we are competing with them when it comes to the talent, or where the money would go. The other, of course, is the two more areas. The other is when it comes to the fab, when it comes to manufacturing, I think the talent is pretty much non-existent, right? So in those cases, we need a lot of skilling. I think plenty of opportunities for skilling to happen. We know of some of our friends who are actually, setting up these OSATs or ATMP. They are actually getting people, taking help from people, say from Malaysia and other places, to bring those guys in and help them skill the people here. I think that's a great thing to do to start with, right? We need to initially build, get that in. We need to initially start that spark and then build on that. So any of the entrepreneurs who are trying to invest in the scaling area, I think, in the manufacturing side, there is a huge amount of opportunity when it comes to test, when it comes to packaging, when it comes to assembly, and of course, fab has huge amount of people required. Now these are very, very specialized skills, right? So I think we'll need a lot of that. And there are some very good government initiatives also coming in this area as well, like Future Skill and so forth, which will really be helpful. We also want to go into the IITs, NITs, and the other institutes, educational institutes, where I don't think we really have that kind of the education programs at all that actually help. I mean, we talk about design. I don't think we even had a VLSI course till recently, and now we are introducing that in multiple areas. We need to have that for the fabs as well. And for the manufacturing aspect, so that will become a key area. The third thing which is important in terms of the skilling, if you want to look at the whole ecosystem, is the product oriented skill set, right? Because I think Varun brought in very well that if we are talking about the market where these companies are going to play in, the semiconductor companies, we need to have some kind of a local market to be able to have resilience brought in. And for that, we need a product mindset. We do have some of that, but it needs to be channelized, right? A lot of people today are working in terms of the design aspects, but are they looking at the whole product? Are they looking at the whole system? I think that is to a great extent lacking, and skilling needed in that product area as well. So companies like CDAC and some of these are actually playing a very good role in bringing that product aspect into the people, giving them the facility and the infrastructure. I was recently, for example, at T-Works in Telangana. Awesome infrastructure to get the people to learn about how to build a product and take it forward. I think we need hundreds of those to be able to get that mindset in and bring that skill.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Suraj, you spoke about some of the sectors, some of the products which will have the maximum demand, domestic demand, even if I talk about. Again, the audience has a lot of suppliers of equipment, tools, consumables. Would you like to throw some light on which are those components, tools, consumables, which our entrepreneurs, SMEs can look at supplying over the next 5 years or 10 years to these major fabs and to these major players?
Sure. So again, going back to the question, right, in terms of what is the opportunity size, right? The ISM is looking at 10% of the overall $1 trillion market as something that India can deliver. So the opportunity size of what we are talking about here in the next 5 to 10 years is around 100 billion, right? In that 100 billion, a lot of it is going to go into the manufacturing space, right? So Tata is building a factory, and then there are about 5 to 10 different OSATs and ATMPs announced. Micron, others will start making stuff. So one of the things that any small company interested in looking at this would be to get themselves qualified. Semiconductor needs semiconductor qualification, semiconductor standards. So whatever you are supplying, is that something that is qualified for the semiconductor industry? And there are very strict norms. You first go and read up what is, there is quality standards, impurity, cleanliness, all that kind of stuff which needs to be adhered to. The opportunity that I see, so we just recently built a small 300 millimeter line in Bangalore for our team members to be able to do the engineering validation. So one of the things we are finding out is that almost everything now is imported. All the tools, the support tools, the supporting people who have to do that, that is not sustainable. There is no way that you can build an ecosystem here where everything is imported and serve this market, right? The value proposition doesn't fit the use case, right? If there is no reason for somebody to come here, import everything and manufacture it here with imported stuff. So you must localize. So I think one of the ways is to just map out the entire ecosystem, going from a bare wafer up to a chip and all the different things that touch that, right? You need to make a clean room. We don't have that ability to make that clean room today. We import people for that. We need somebody to come and clean parts, send it back and get it at that same cleanliness level. We don't have that. I was even telling you, the clean room bunny suit that people wear to go in, that there are only 1 or 2 people in India now who can clean it and send it back to the same level that we have. The gloves that are supplied, every small piece. So what I would do is to just map out the entire supply chain of what it takes to manufacture and look for, is there a Indian supplier today viable who can meet semiconductor standards? Chemicals, materials, a lot of these today don't exist, and that ecosystem will need to get developed. So the gas lines that you set up inside, just the welding for that so that you don't get defects. Everything. So to answer your question, almost everything that touches the whole manufacturing floor is opportunity that's available for us to be able to localize and give global service. That's the other thing, that whatever you do should be at the global level, because that's the output of what goes out of this should compete globally. So can you provide global service and can you provide it at a cost that's competitive for this? I think that would be the opportunity, and it's about $100 billion worth of opportunity.
Right. Lovely. Ashish, related question. Now we have spoken about $100 million of opportunity. From where do you get all this information? Again, this is for the benefit of our audience. If somebody is looking to be a vendor, to be a supplier of services, of some of the products he spoke about, which forum, which platform, which a particular event, or is there a particular gateway which the government is trying to create? Where do you think people can go for this kind of information? Because ultimately, to draw the whole value chain, to draw the whole supply chain, and then understand, first of all, understand where is the demand, and secondly, understand the specifications, and as he rightly mentioned, some of the certifications if you are even looking to supply globally. But how do you get all this information? Because a lot of our existing SMEs may be into pure hardware electronics. But I think to scale up yourself, to provide that level of services and components and products, you may need a lot of help, guidance, technical specifications, knowledge and all that. How do you get that? From where do you get that?
Okay. So that's an interesting question. And as of today, as we already talked about, there are multiple nodes in the system. Design, verification, everyone knows about it. Every course that we have in our graduation, like you have the VLSI word attached to it. Electronics with VLSI, electrical with VLSI and so on. Eventually, we would need education on the newer aspects. OSAT, not many people know about it. Manufacturing, hardly anyone even thought about it. That's why India has been investing heavily into fabless design, because it never thought it would be conceptualizing the concept of a fab in India. Now, ISM was launched. After that, Semicon came into existence. Semicon India conference happened last year. There is a lot of literature and material available on the Semicon website about what's needed. But what Suraj is predicting is what's going to happen after that. For example, many years back, someone decided to start a Maruti factory in Gurgaon. But within a couple of years of that factory coming, the complete auto ancillary unit, which is there in Gurgaon, that's actually valued much more than the Maruti Suzuki factory over there. I think the same thing is about to happen in this industry, and for visionaries in the electronic manufacturing space who can look at that opportunity, you would identify the node, whether it's OSAT, whether it's manufacturing, where it is actually happening. Even if it's design, there are a lot of companies investing into training people for design. CDEC was the government company, but there are hundreds or thousands of companies at every conference trying to teach about VLSI. Similarly, education about fabrication process. Those certifications, not just the government certifications, the private ones, and then once the manufacturing process is understood, which as of now we need to rely on how it's happening in the other countries, because India is at a position where it has given out contracts for few OSAT units, a possible fab with Tata Power and PSMC coming in Dholera in a few years from now, but we still do not have those units. But now is the time to really go and study, get in touch with the right people in industry to go into the finer details as to what would be needed. Clean room was a perfect example. It will look like a simple room, that it's a clean room, very pure gases, very pure water, very pure energy needs to be supplied to this place. But are we going to import everything? Or are we going to build the water purification plant which has that capability, which is suited for treating water available in India to the levels that are required in a fab? So I think a little of it is available today, a lot of it needs to be written, and even collating that information is an opportunity for someone to do that.
I was exactly about to say that. I think that's a brilliant business model. I'm sure many of the entrepreneurs might be thinking about it already.
I'll just add two things. So Semicon India is coming up in September in Delhi. And then there are two industry bodies, maybe three. ESA is one. So ESA does put out reports. There is a recent report on supply chain. So if you have, please do go and look at the ESA supply chain report. That will lay out a lot of this. ELSINA is another body that expands beyond semiconductor to electronics. It will lay out all the different things. And then the ICEA, India Cellular Electronics Association. They also expand even beyond that. There is display and other. So these are three good industry bodies that will provide you information on where the opportunities are.
Right, lovely. I'm sure our audience has been taking notes on this one, but thank you so much. Sanjay, when it comes to the role of the government and some of the even private sector to create the ecosystem around a particular facility, around a particular plant, where does the opportunity lie? The government has been providing a lot of monetary incentives. They've been rolling out almost 50% as incentives. But what about the ecosystem? What about the surroundings? What about the whole creating a hotbed for that kind of work to happen? So where is it that the government should need to intervene, and where is it that our private sector players could come in, our entrepreneurs could come in to provide that ecosystem?
Sure. So on this point, my view is a little bit radical. We have a lot of focus from government on manufacturing for the right reasons, no doubt about that. But if you look into the overall value chain, the end product that comes in our hand, let's say a cell phone as an end electronic product. So typical analysis says 60 to 70% of the value lies into the core IP, intellectual property, the core design. And it is a known fact that today India as a country, and since the topic is superpower, India does not own any design right now, from the semiconductors perspective. We are trying very hard for manufacturing, which is great because that is another way to build the overall ecosystem, and the pyramid structure creates a lot of job creation right at the bottom of the pyramid. We believe, and we have been talking to government, that while all the things that have been done, they are in the right direction, but focus on design is completely missing. Today we have a DLI scheme, which is hardly anything when you invest billions of dollars to bring a technology, but $2 million of DLI is not going to cut and any impact. So we are very strong proponent, and I am representing L&T Semiconductors, which is a design fabless company. So we are truly living into that mode. Now within design, just to give you example, anywhere you look around, any product, let's take a simple case of our electrification systems. 100% of chips today that goes into any system are imported. You take, let's go to our test books. The first thing any engineer would have learned in semiconductor is the basic MOSFET. Right? This is the atomic level studies done. That MOSFET technology is 60, 70-year-old technology. Till date, India is importing that. And if you start right from the bottom, there is a process technology. India imports it. You build a single transistor. So I'm not talking about a multi-million or a multi-billion transistors on a chip. One IGBT MOSFET is a single transistor. And that transistor can handle current up to say 3000 amperes and maybe at 3.3 kilovolt of voltage. So one single transistor. That transistor we are importing. There are only 5 top companies in the world, 3 in Japan, 2 in America and Europe, which are doing that. These single transistors goes in series and parallel to something called a power module. That power module India imports, and the entire nation's electricity, HVDC, transmission happens using imported technology. And India is only growing from a 450 gigawatt of power, we are all set to become a 2000 gigawatt in next 10 years. If we do nothing, everything will be imported. And we are talking about a single transistor, not a complex design. So my point is we are trying to work with the government that can we be partner in your design ecosystem as well? Because if that is a 70% of the value, why we are completely ignoring that fact? Right? I know a lot of companies are going because a lot of subsidies being given into manufacturing front. But I think if we impact our design and IP capability, we will probably produce a company for a processor design. India is importing like ARM cores. That is the only company in the world that is supplying to probably every company which are making chips. You go into a simple ceiling fan. India is the largest market for ceiling fans because of the largest population. Each ceiling fan is set to become from a coil fan into a BLDC fan. Very simple technology. It's a brushless DC current-based fans. They will reduce the power consumption by 50% into every single fan with zero wear and tear because the coil goes away. Guess what? Every chip that goes into that is imported. And India is going to convert 1 billion fans into these BLDC fans. Right? You go into the USB chargers. Every single power electronics is imported. So we are saying if you look around, the Indian consumption is one of the fastest rising consumptions. And all the entrepreneurs, all they can do is look around and try to develop and be part of the ecosystem, be it a process technology or the basic design capability, then go to the processor design, and then we can talk about manufacturing and all to the big players. That will be my response.
Thank you so much. Amardeep, we've been talking about R&D, technology transfer, and we have some of our friends who have come here to understand if they can supply technology to India. Now, how comfortable is the ecosystem in India for technology transfer? Or what is it that, one, of course, at one end the government, but what is it that our colleagues, entrepreneurs, businesses from even outside India can really be comfortable about that, this is how I can provide technology, supply technology to India?
Yeah. So, I think there will be a lot of details and nuances in what you mentioned. But I would say that I think as Sanjay was bringing out, the IP internal development or something that we can get from outside and own, I think becomes a very key element, right, when we are trying to do this development and we're trying to reach as a semiconductor superpower. And the technology can be brought in, and government plays a very important role in bringing that policy in so that we can enable that, right? And I think the government is actually making some very good moves in doing that. For example, recently the Quad agreement that the government did for it's a memorandum of cooperation specifically for the supply chain resilience. It was specifically brought in for that purpose. the with the intent that, with this, China plus one, this engagement becomes very important. So all the technology transfer between these 4 countries can happen more easily. There is a recent agreement that happened with Japan very specifically for this purpose, so that the companies within the 2 countries can actually seamlessly have a technology transfer done. And with the great superpower that Japan is in this area in terms of manufacturing, I think this plays a very, very important role. When it comes to ecosystem, a similar policy established between India and Singapore, purely for the purpose of how we can build the semiconductor ecosystem beyond the fab, to build around this area. So many of these things are actually coming up. From that perspective, I think there is a huge amount of opportunity. The government is doing a lot of great stuff. Actually, it's commendable the way the government has actually, operated in the past, I think 3 or 5 years, to make it easy for the entrepreneurs to build internally and also to get it from outside. But there is still, I think, policy gap is what I would say, that are we doing enough? I mean, a lot is being done, but because India is starting from pretty much zero. So there is a lot that is to be done in a very accelerated manner. And that is where, when we compare with some of the other, for example, what we have with the CHIPS Act in the US or what we have in Europe, the amount of monetary benefit that the country is able to give or able to afford at this time, I think is still less. And we can probably do more. The DLI scheme, for example, is a great thing that comes into picture here. If we want to build our internal IP, there is no harm in actually getting support from the global players to be able to do that. But the current DLI scheme doesn't really allow any way of these global non-Indian players to be able to take benefit of that. So what that leads to is that they don't really have any reason to look at, why should I maybe collaborate with a university in India to build an IP that is for India? Why would they do it when they have so much else going on in the world, right? So these kind of incentives where, we are engaging the global partner and Indian partner to build the technology, I think will be extremely important.
Lovely. Thank you, Amardeep. I think we've got only 2.5 minutes to go. And this question will go to all of you. And Varun, I'll start with you so that you don't have that complaint about you being the last one. If you're an entrepreneur sitting in the audience, if you are a micro to a small size entrepreneur, or if you are sort of a startup, which is that particular area you would want to immediately get into? What is that immediate business opportunity for an entrepreneur in India as of now in the semiconductor ecosystem to immediately latch on to?
And you're saying this from the perspective as an input to an OSAT, or
it could be
within the industry?
Absolutely,
okay.
Whatever.
So I'll give our own example and perspective on this. So for example, in the ATMP or OSAT space, when the IC is ready, the very last activity is to test this IC. While we talk about 20% engineers in this ecosystem, but we don't find anybody equipped for testing because no testing happens here. I mean, there are 1 odd companies who do that, but that ecosystem does not exist. The second is, again, when we talk about design, so we talk about chip design, VLSI, but we don't talk about the basics, like nobody's doing lead frame design. The lead frame is not electronics at all. It's mechanical design. Even if you talk about a substrate, substrate designs are being done, but for international companies and for that kind of demand. We are able to find designers who are saying we are doing AI, we are doing ML, we are doing very high level chip design, but some of the basic designs are not done. We are building an LED driver IC. 100 million pieces is the demand of this LED driver IC per month. So not only the BLDC fan that was spoken about, but the LED bulb, we are building that. We could not find anybody for design. So that's another area. The lead frame, we have, by the way, identified somebody in the south who has taken up the challenge in as much as we have and is ready to take that challenge to come up and say, okay, I will try and design and develop. So there are several opportunities that SMEs or other entrepreneurs can look at. I think Suraj also already adhered to, chemicals, right? There are companies manufacturing chemicals, but not specialty chemicals. And probably their investment would be 20-25% delta. You don't have to start, putting up an entire plant. Mechanical items. Just 2 days back, we've had one of our wire bond machines had a part break. It's a simple mechanical part, and I'm going to wait for 3 weeks at a $700 cost when I know it might just cost $7. So there are enough of opportunities, and I would believe so the Indian entrepreneurial mindset will eventually, look at these opportunities. Just the last thing before I end, and I want to give this entire perspective. So it was spoken about that we need to bring in talent from overseas, and we as a company have done that too. We have 4 Philippine national people in our company. Now, one of them, he himself has been in the semiconductor domain manufacturing for the last 30 years. His wife is in semiconductor. His 2 sons are in semiconductor. That is how it has to be. So in Philippines, that's how they are, right? So it's like in every house, we probably have 3 people in software. So till it happens like that, the semiconductor manufacturing part of it will not necessarily grow. And we have to start believing in manufacturing as well, along with all the other aspects. I would say everything is important as an ingredient to have a good dish.
Right, lovely. I
Thanks.
think you're talking about what we saw with software and IT 20 years back in India. Perhaps that's the revolution we are talking about.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Yes, Ashish, what do you think our entrepreneurs should look at?
So I think we already talked about all the nodes. Focus from the government side, semiconductor assembly and test, which is something new. Design we have been doing, we have the know-how. Semiconductor assembly and test is very new. The government contracts have been given out. Those facilities will be up and running within the next 2 years, for sure. Now, education and upskilling for those systems is needed. Start an education upskilling platform. Engage into consulting with these companies which are already engaged there. When these companies are up and running, supply your workforce to these companies as contractors, because that's exactly how India started 20 years back as a software servicing company. Today, all software products are being done from here. That's how we started in design. We started as a verification hub, and now we are doing design in almost all companies. And I believe that would be the way forward in OSAT as well.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. Suraj, what do you think?
So to me, the lowest hanging fruit, right? The semiconductor ecosystem has a lot of global players who currently serve the industry. Can you extend that to India, right? Just be the representative with local expertise that can service whatever people need. The wire bonder that got broken, can somebody here go and fix it the same day? Today, if any equipment breaks down, it's a 1-week turnaround. Somebody has to fly in from Japan or Korea to fix. So bring the industry to India. To me, that is the lowest hanging fruit. The second is, once you have factories here that are churning out stuff, you need a local market for that. So can there be people here who design applications and product for chips that are going to be made here? So to me, those are the two big things that need to get done.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay. Over to you.
So I will start by saying that when the gold rush happened in US, it was said that the people who made more money, they were not the one who were having the the gold mines. They were actually the people who made the shovels. So likewise, it's an equivalent of a gold rush happening as a semiconductor rush. 2 things from my side. One, every single product that we are using has not just one IC, it has bunch of ICs. Even a BLDC example I gave, it has more than 25 ICs, discrete components, active and passive components. The game of integrating them into a simple system on chip is going to be the winning game, and that is only possible if you can understand the system. So the entrepreneurs can actually have a systems mindset, because easier integration will give a easier software compatibility, easier downloads, easier upgrades, and that is going to be very unique. And I will give one word of caution. As we are moving, AI is coming, from the behind. So do not get into things which can be replicated easily. Do not get into things which are going to be redundant or more of a repetitive, because it's very easy to get into things which are easy or simple, but they will get eliminated. I was in one of the podcasts with Mr. Ram Gopal Rao from BITS, and he said that there is a 50% reduction in the jobs at the entry-level software this year, and this is all because of AI. So we need to be cautious that for entrepreneurs, pick something where you have the knowledge and real knowledge instead of automation.
Lovely. Thank you. Amardeep, your final word.
I think given the 2 minutes, I'll just summarize by saying at least how I see it, that it's about 3 P's in the end when we want to be the superpower. One is policy, the other is people, and the third is product. And I think all 3 areas need focus. Policy is where we are looking for support from the government. I think great things happening, but yes, there is scope. People is where I think we can play a very, very important role by bringing that skilling in. And the entrepreneurs, I think, have a huge role to play by, bringing those, the equipment. And, in this case, that equipment, the shackles essentially are the skills that we give to the people, right? And the tools that we give to the people. So they will become important. And the product mindset, I think that will be the key. The product mindset will give us that resilience that is needed for the semiconductor industry to be able to rely on India as a consumer of whatever they produce, right? So,
thank you so much. I think after the interval, we should do a Shark Tank now that you've got so many business ideas. But thank you so much, all of you. I think we are already running out of time, but really appreciate all of you sparing your time, and thank you all of you for listening to us.
We'd like to present mementos to our panelists, and may I request the moderator of the session, Mr. Abhishek Gupta, to kindly present the mementos. We're now presenting a memento to Mr. Amardeep Punyani. Thank you so much, sir, for very briefly talking about how the 3 P's needs to be put in together to bring in this revolution. A big thank you to Mr. Sanjay Gupta. Thank you so much for those promising ideas. And we also extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Suraj Rengarajan. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts and most importantly, your time with us. We thank Mr. Ashish Hari. Thank you so much, Mr. Hari, for participating in this conversation and a lot of takeaways. Thank you so much, Mr. Varun Manwani. Thank you so much, sir. And a big thank you to the moderator of the session for wonderfully conducting and concluding the session. And on behalf of Exhibition India, may I present the memento to the moderator of the session, Mr. Abhishek Gupta.